Hello again, everyone. Kata Kosman, publisher of Madison's Lumber Reporter. Here we are now. It's the beginning of July, and we have had not very much going on with the softwood lumber market. Prices are leveling off from the small little increases that they had earlier this year in the spring and are becoming at some moderate close approximation to what they were 2 years ago, a little bit higher than they were at this same time last year. Not a lot is happening with housing, and so the demand for softwood lumber continues to stay pretty even. There's more data that has come out about the sawmill manufacturing volumes and log export and all that. I'm going to show you now in just a moment. And the only real sort of thing that people are waiting on or that is unknown, one of those is known, is the duty, the softwood lumber duty that has been on now for quite a long time, almost 10 years. Softwood lumber dispute number 5 that we're in right now with the United States. And that duty will be doubling next month, according to the latest release from the U.S. Trade Department. And so it's going from approximately 15% on Canadian lumber entering into the U.S. to approximately 30%. And people should remember that this duty has, over the most recent years of the continuing dispute, been put on a wider range of lumber commodities than it was, let's say, a couple of decades ago. Meaning cedar products are included, boards are included, the 1x4s are also subject to the duty, while in the past it was just literally the construction framing lumber, the 2x4, the studs, all that kind of stuff. So the final determination we're still waiting to get, but expectations are that the constraint for Canadian wood to cross into the US in August is going to be double. What will the response of the Canadian sawmills be? A lot of them have already been adjusting their business in terms of looking for more customers offshore and in other markets, and of course as well domestically within Canada. There is not a lot of room to increase Canadian lumber sales in Canada, as it's 10% of the population, 10% of the housing starts, and therefore Canada is a net exporter of lumber regardless of where it is going. And then there are also there is still talk of the tariff. However, there's a couple of reasons that I think that lumber will not be included in the now supposed to be August 1st announcement of whatever tariffs are going to be put on foreign goods entering into the U.S., because there is 2 studies that were ordered by President Trump at the beginning of this year about U.S. domestic, both timber and lumber. So the forest land and the actual lumber industry are right now being studied, and the results are, one of them is meant to come in September and one of them in November. So what I'm thinking is whatever happens with a tariff announcement, I don't think lumber will be in there, because there's data that is being submitted to the White House for President Trump and his team to decide about whether or not what they're going to do with promoting U.S. domestic timber harvest and lumber manufacturing. And the other reason that I think is because our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is in conversation with the U.S. to make a bilateral, or to solve some of these trade questions. And the deadline for that to be resolved is in July. I think they said the 19th. And so we'll have to wait and see. But for now, it does appear that whatever tariff conversation will not include lumber, certainly for this year, hopefully, but the duty is expected to increase to double. So let's look at some of the graphs. I'll show you what the Madison's lumber prices are doing right now. And I'm going to be making some other videos immediately after this, talking more about the macro situation with the timber harvest and the log sale and the log export and the lumber export, lumber volumes, to show a bigger picture. The latest data that came out is for May. Some of it is for April, which gives us an idea of what was going on earlier this year, comparing to the recent years, and then we can see what we think is going to happen going on into the rest of 2025. So this is the latest Madison's Lumber Prices Index, constructed in the same manner as the new lumber futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. The thick black line is this year. You can see that it did tick up slightly over spring and then has settled off into a nice consistent straight line, especially when compared to that volatility of the light blue line and the dark blue line for 2021 and 2022. As you can see, the green line and the brown line for last year and the year before, also not as great of a change throughout the year. As I was saying, approximately $150 per thousand board feet up and down seasonally is normal. Whenever it's greater than that, usually means either something drastic like the COVID or the housing construction has really taken off. This is the same data for the first week of July, showing you the tiny increase compared to the end of June. And then if you go along to see from 1 month ago, this price is now up $17 or 3%. Compared to the same week last year, however, it's up $125 or 33%. And compared to the same week 2 years ago, it's up $28 or 6%. This is the benchmark Western Spruce Pine Fir KD 2x4 number 2 and better price. This commodity comes out of British Columbia, Alberta, Washington State, Oregon, and a little bit out of Idaho. The blue line is this year. You can see that it's cresting up a little bit compared to 2 years ago and is up now quite a bit compared to the same time last year. And the range is from around $325 per thousand board feet right up to about $550 in the spring of this year. And so this is now what we can start to say, what is the low and what is the high? Of course, in the context of quite muted housing starts. And so what we can say right now is that we know the price bottom is around that 325, and until things change, what is the high? So what we are having now is a moderation to the volatility that was going on from 2020 to 2022, and a lot more ability to predict, a lot more stability for industry folks to recognize where are we with supply and demand and what can we expect going forward. The U.S. housing did not pick up this year, as a lot of people, including myself, expected to happen. Part of the reason being that interest rates are still somewhat higher, but there's many other reasons, both political, macroeconomic, across the continent, giving people pause and a sort of wait and see approach for many things that are unfolding. How will that work out, and questions to be answered. And so the sawmill manufacturing volumes are stable, and the sales volumes, of course, are also lower than they would have been, in the previous, what we would consider a normal year like 2019. And industry is responding to that by keeping sawmill capacity utilization rates lower. again, than optimal. And so it has improved somewhat. This data comes out of the Western Wood Products Association in Portland, Oregon. They put out a newsletter called Lumber Track every month. It's a few months lag, but it is showing for this year the Canadian mills increasing manufacturing a little bit more than it had been at the very, very low of 2023. And the US is, they didn't drop in 2023 as much as Canada did. And so this, of course, now is leveling to keep the supply of lumber in line with what is demand. The customers of lumber, whether they be a large home builder, a contractor, or a retailer, are really skeptical about what is the situation. Nobody knows what's going on in the larger global environment. And they are only buying the wood that they know that they can sell, turn around and sell. And so previous times, what would be normal is if there is wood available from the producer, sawmill, and also wood available from the wholesaler, whether it's a reload or a reseller of any kind, and the customer can go back and forth and try to find out what best deal that they can make. But what has been happening now for about 3 years is everybody's doing what's called just-in-time buying, where even if it's a wholesaler, they also will call the mill and whatever their customer is asking for, order it at that time, which means that there's not inventory, that nobody is stocking inventory. And because they are worried if the price is going to go down and they're going to get stuck holding more expensive wood that they paid for, let's say 2 months ago, and will have to take a loss. The veterans, and especially the producers, have been warning now for quite a while to watch out, because all it takes is for a few short weeks of a bunch of people ordering a lot of wood all at the same time from the mill, and the price will go up. Because the longer it takes the mill to make the wood and ship it out, the higher will be the price the further out they have to quote. Being that it's already halfway through the summer, starting to be a slow down time for construction, let's say in places like Quebec, where they go off for all of August. And British Columbia also takes a lot of downtime because there's a fire ban in the forest, and where the sawmills are and where the logging is, no heavy equipment. One spark can cause a massive problem with a wildfire. And so unless something, very dramatic happens now, we would normally, where the lumber price would have been rising in the early summer, in the spring, leveling off now, we are headed into a time when prices generally start to drop. But things have not been normal even prior to 2020, mostly because of the weather. And there has been times where autumn is just very mild and building goes on right until almost sometimes November. So there's a lot of the year left to go. I'm showing you the graphs for what the prices are right now and what is happening with the market right now. Don't miss out. Subscribe today. Your colleagues and competitors are already using the fabulous Madison's Lumber Reporter price dashboard. So these are the commodities that are traded at the highest volume across North America. The pink line is that Western spruce I was just showing you. The yellow line is Southern Yellow Pine on the east side. These are all 2x4. And then the blue line is Eastern spruce. The purple line is studs. Can't build a house without studs. The teal line is Douglas fir, a very popular a commodity used by architects and builders on the U.S. Eastern Seaboard and for high-end custom-built homes in places like Texas and California. And then that gray line is your panel. We've chosen Canadian softwood plywood out of Toronto, 9.5 millimeters, which is running off the right-hand axis, Canadian dollars per 1,000 square feet. Everything else is US dollars per 1,000 board feet. So this is a 2-year rolling price history from July 2023 to present. And the same data now as a table. Again, that Western Spruce benchmark item along the top. As you can see, compared to last week, not much of a change. And then moving along on this table toward the right, compared to 1 month ago, there is some up and down where the Western Spruce and the Eastern Spruce are up a little bit or flat, but that Southern Pine on the east side price is down compared to 1 month ago. This is because that price rose higher than the market could bear a couple of months ago and is now correcting back. And so this is why it's important to look at all of the different commodities, because the customers can switch back and forth. All of these items meet the building code. The customer has relationships with their supplier, and they can choose who is going to give them the best deal that they can get any given week. And so lastly, here we have that Southern Yellow Pine East Side 2x4. And this is what I was saying, where the blue line of this year is almost exactly matching the pink line of 2 years ago and a little bit higher than the yellow line from last year. This is a nice, smooth price change, provides a lot of stability for industry and customers to be able to see where the market is, decide for themselves where they think the market is going, and make their plans going forward. So as this year goes on and we get the ongoing data for the coming months, it's going to be very interesting to see if that blue line continues on the trend of the pink line of 2 years ago, or even the yellow line showing an increase later in the year, which was not historically the way these price changes used to go seasonally. Stay tuned for my next video. I will be showing you the data of the timber and the logs and the lumber manufacturing and sales. If you like what you see here, click like so this video will get recommended to other viewers. Subscribe here on YouTube so you'll be notified when we make another video. And if you need more than just these small snapshots that I put on YouTube or that we post on the website, here in the caption is a link to fill out a form. You can get a sample. We will send you the list of the 500 softwood lumber and panel commodity prices that we track every week and what the price is that week. And we will also send you the commentary explaining why those prices are changing. That is what my customers who have a login to the dashboard get to see every week as we make updates.